everybody? Ben Nelson, the Everyday Real Estate Investor here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Hope you are out trying to make things happen in this challenging market that we're in. There's always challenges in every market, but there's always opportunities. And honestly, the challenges is what produces the opportunities, right? Those challenges, if you're a problem solver, that's how you find those opportunities that lazy investors or less educated investors are not able to find. So don't be afraid of a challenging market. Know that there's opportunity out there and you just got to go find it. So hope you're doing that. We're not going to talk about the market today, but I just want to encourage everybody because I know things, are moving a little bit slower than they were last year, although maybe that's not a fair comparison. But there's definitely less trading, especially in the commercial multifamily space, if you're in that space. I know every market's a little different, but for sure here in the Portland metro area, it is way slower than it was a couple of years ago. Last year was down, and then this year is down even more. So just not a lot of stuff trading hands right now. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. Cap rates, interest rates, just unsure what's going to happen here with the economy. There's just a lot to that, which again, we're not going to get into today, but I just want to encourage you. There's always deals out there. You just got to go maybe dig for them a little bit harder than you had to a couple years ago. But again, a couple years ago, super competitive, so we don't have that to deal with. So there's always challenges. There's always things that you have to work through, but there's also there's never a perfect market. I always say that whether you're investing or buying a personal residence, if you're waiting for that perfect market where you're going to have low interest rates and you're going to have you're going to be in the driver's seat as far as negotiation as a buyer, and be able to get concessions and all that stuff and not have any competition. That environment doesn't really typically exist. So let's jump into the topic today. That is not the topic, but again, wanted to encourage you to keep going. If you're struggling, just keep plugging at it. You're going to find those deals out there. So today we are going to talk about, and hopefully this will help with some of that. So it gets really easy to become unfocused, especially if you're kind of floundering and like, hey, things aren't happening, and you start to try to do all these things all at once, or if you're trying to build your business, there's so many things that need to happen to be able to do that, and it gets really easy to become unfocused. And even you can feel like you're focused, but you've got this whole list of things that need to happen, lots of things that you need to do to be able to build your business. And it's just how do you manage that? How do you get through that? So today we're going to talk about your one thing and finding focus for massive success. And where this comes from is, if you have not read the book, The One Thing, this is a must read. This is by Gary Keller, one of the founders of Keller Williams, and he co-wrote it with Jay Papasan. And just an excellent book, very easy read, and just for me, it was groundbreaking for me because it really got down to the crux of how do you manage all of these things and how do you find that focus to be able to have more success. So I'm going to touch on some highlights from the book. It is not going to do the book justice. Go out and buy this book as soon as, buy it now. Pause the podcast and buy it now. Honestly, but at the very least, buy it after we're done with the podcast here, because you're going to get a lot out of the book and it's going to change your life. I promise. So all things that I'm still working on, I'm not perfect at implementing what the book talks about, but I'm getting better. And that's what it's all about, right? Is constant improvement. I don't think we're ever in a spot where we are exactly where we want to be. And we can't improve, right? And if we feel like we're in that spot where we just don't have any room for improvement, we can't get better. I think we're missing something. I think we all have that, and you're sure overlooking probably some shortfalls that you have in yourself and in your own life and business if you think you have nothing left to improve on. So, okay, I'm going to jump into some highlights. So, this book, basically, the crux of it and this concept is focusing on the one thing. There's so many things that you could be doing. There's a lot of things you maybe even should be doing, but you can't do them all at once. You have to figure out what is the thing that you should be doing right now. Only one thing can be the most important thing at a time. We talk about priorities. We talk about it in a plural context, and really, the word priority means the most important thing, and so we use it in a context of having multiple priorities when really that's not really a thing. It's really not, and so we get confused in this where we have here's my top 5 priorities. Well, which one's the top one? Which one's your priority right now? That's what we really need to get to, because you can have multiple, like your business is a priority, your family is a priority. All of these things need to happen, right? But they have to have some separation too. And what's the most important thing right now? Is my most important thing right now to be working on my business, or is it to be spending time with my family? Because they can't both be priorities at the same time, in the same moment anyway, right? And that's where we get unfocused effort with our business. That's where we get we don't have focused attention when we're with our family, and that's not what we want, right? Be where you are, be in the moment, and separate those things out. So the book, and he gets into it like halfway through the book because it sets the foundation really, really well. But he talks about the focusing question, and the focus. I'm going to actually read it because it's a super powerful question, and I'm going to basically give you kind of you don't have to read the book if just using this concept, but again, I'm not going to do it justice. I highly encourage you to do it because there's a whole lot of other tidbits in here and how to do this the right way, and a lot of other things. So, but the question is, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And so he calls this the focusing question because this lets you, it's not just what's the one thing I should be doing right now, right? That could be so many things. It could be making phone calls. It could be putting together a proposal. It could be, talking to a seller. It could be having a meeting with a team member. There's so many things that it could be. If you just say, what's the one thing I should be doing right now? Okay, that's a fine question. Add to it the ending, right? Such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. That's the crux of the focusing question. Now, sometimes you're going to have to do things like those things that I listed, right? But if you're always asking this question, it clarifies when you're not sure what to do next to improve your marriage, to make your systems and processes easier in your business, to know what to do next in starting that business. This really reduces it down, right? Because you can have a list of 20 or 30 things that you need to do to launch your business or start your marketing plan or whatever, fill in the blank. When you ask that second part of the question, such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary, it may even take a chunk of those things off the list, right? But even if it doesn't do that, it really, really quickly narrows down, well, these 20 things aren't going to do that for me. They're not going to make things easier. They're not going to make it unnecessary. So this is really what I need to do. I need to set up my processes because that's going to make my transactions flow a lot more smoothly, right? So those are the kinds of questions that you need to ask because, and the thing is really, and I'm talking from experience here because I'm going through this right now in my business with building my team and everything, is we really have to set up good systems. And so that's the focus right now, is doing that, because by doing that, things become easier or unnecessary moving forward. And we have those processes in place rather than, scrambling through transactions and things like that. Right. So sometimes it's better to put other things on pause, essentially, to be able to do these other things, because in the end, it's going to save time and effort, and it's going to make things smoother, right? And so he takes this focusing question: what's the one thing that I can do that such that by doing it, everything will be easier or unnecessary? And you can apply it to anything. Okay, so again, I mentioned marriage, right? Your marriage, your business, right now, right? Like, what is the category with my health, with my spiritual life? Anything that you can think of, you can ask this question, and you should ask this question. And then you take this into your day-to-day, your weekly, when you're planning out how things look. And again, especially, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do this week? What am I going to do this month? What am I going to do this year when you're doing your annual review and planning, which you should be doing? Um, Ask this same question. What's the one thing that I can do today for my business such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do this week such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary? And ask it for everything because it gives you clarity for that week, that day, that month, whatever you're looking at. And that's that portion of your life so that you know, and now you have something measurable, right? So you get to the end of the day and it's like, and this happens to me a lot because I put a lot on myself. Like I'm going to get all this stuff done. And then really it's just unrealistic expectations. Some of it's efficiencies, a lot of it's unrealistic expectations. But if you can at least at the end of the day say, I did my one thing for the day and I got that done, right? I did my one thing that week. Hey, if nothing else happens this week, this needs to happen because this is going to make the biggest impact in my business, in my life. That's the one thing that needs to happen no matter what. Now you have a measure of success. That's the one thing that you need to get done. And so everything else, it gets scheduled around that basically, right? Hey, I need to get this one project done this week because this is important for moving to the next step in my business. Then it's off my plate. I can move on to the next thing. Now you time block that in, put that in your calendar. Everything else gets worked around that because that's your one thing for this week to get done. So this is all about, again, priority. You got to create that priority. And this is what helps create that or clarify that priority is by asking these questions, right? I'm going through all this within my own business. There's so many things that I have that, they get 90% done. You have this idea, you have this thing you want to implement, you have all of these things that you're trying, and you got half a dozen of them that are so close to being done and they're 90% of the way done, right? So asking this question will help figure out, okay, which one of these things am I going to finish up first? Because, which one's going to make the biggest impact? Which one's going to have which one's going to help me do things in a better way and make other things maybe even unnecessary in my business. So it's going to reduce those things that get incomplete because they are going to come to the surface if they're important. And if they're not, then they'll keep moving down the list, right? And maybe they become off the list. We all have a huge list of things to do, right? There's just too much to do for most of us. You just can't get it all done in a day. It's overwhelming, right? Asking this focusing question, what is my one thing? It's going to put that first thing first, and it's going to put it in full focus. It's going to remove everything else, put it to the side, and then it allows you to focus on that one thing without feeling guilty about it or like I have all these other things, because you know why you're doing that one thing. This is strategic. I'm doing this one thing. I set those other things aside. I'm not ignoring them. I'm being purposeful in setting them aside so I can focus on this one thing, and then I can move on to my next thing. And it may even reduce or eliminate some other things that I have on my list that I don't need to do, right? So it's an efficiency thing. It's not about being successful is not about doing a lot of things. It's not about, it feels good to have that task list and to check things off the list. And man, I checked 20 things off my list today. Okay, but did any of them matter? Did any of them make an impact on your business? Did any of them help you get closer to your goals? Or was it just checking things off the list? Because if it's just checking things off the list, it may feel good in the moment, but it's not actually helping you move forward. It's actually being counterproductive because it's giving you that sense of accomplishment, but it's actually not helping you move forward in your business. So it's better to get that one thing done than to get 20 things done that don't help you move forward and don't make an impact on your business. So don't fool yourself with a to-do list, with a checklist of things to do. It's better to ask this focusing question, figure out what's the most important, do that first, then move on to the next one. And on that note, this is not like necessarily a daily thing. Again, we're in the middle of our day, or you get this done, or something pivots, right? In your day. That happens all the time, especially as an entrepreneur. Your day changes. So the one thing may change, right? It may change. You may get a call from a seller, and you may be, my one thing was this. Now I got a call from the seller, and this is a great opportunity. I really need to take care of this. And now what's my one thing? My one thing now is focusing on serving this seller and figuring out and preparing for a meeting or whatever. So it can change. Now you don't want to be distracted, right? You don't want to get pulled away too much, but your one thing is dynamic. It can change throughout the day. So you have to have some flexibility there. But when you get your one thing, you're asking it again. You get your one thing done. Okay, that's done. And now what is the one thing? And you're asking yourself again, and you're constantly pulling that thing off of your to-do list, off of your priorities list, to the top, to the surface, to be able to focus on that and again have the greatest impact you can on your business. So trying to do too many things at once, it just doesn't work. You can't be focused. The whole switch tasking thing, going from one thing to the next, or just having a cluttered mind and a cluttered list, on paper or in your head, wherever it's at. You're losing productivity because you're not sure what to do. You don't have that clarity on what to do, and that's what this focusing question does. So again, I hope this is helpful to you in your business. This is a little bit, I know, shorter of an episode. I hope that's okay. I just really wanted to get kind of to the crux of this and to the main point of this, which is we really need to be focused, and we need to have focused efforts. We need to have clarity of vision. We need to have clarity in what we are doing in the moment for this week, for this month. And this is a great way to do it. Asking the question, again, just to leave it with you, it's what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. The One Thing by Gary Keller. If you have not read this book, you have to pick it up. It's a pretty easy read, but you're going to learn a ton. I recommend this to every person that I talk to that's an entrepreneur. I always have you read The One Thing? And this is like my number one recommended book. And I think you'll see the reason for that. So pick up the book, and then I want you to start using that question. What's your one thing? Okay, you're turning this podcast off now. I'm not sure if you're listening to this in the morning or getting ready for your day tomorrow, but either way, ask yourself this question: what's the one thing that I need to do today, tomorrow, such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary? Get that focus, get that clarity of vision, get that one thing done, and then move on to the next one. You're going to find more efficiency. You're going to find more joy in completing the things that need to get done, and the things that honestly often we push them to the back. The things that we should be doing, that should be our one thing, they get everything else gets in the way of that, right? We're putting out fires. We're doing the easier things, the quicker things, the things that are the loudest, right? And calling at us or people, that are calling us, clients that need us, all those things. And those are all important, but we let those things get in the way of our one thing if we don't know what our one thing is and we don't prioritize that. So I encourage you to do that. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks again for listening in. Go out there and find some awesome real estate deals and make it a great rest of the day.